The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the isolated island resort off the coast of Charleston. I stood on the balcony of my room, the salty breeze tousling my hair as I stared out at the endless expanse of ocean. This retreat was supposed to be a chance to unwind, to bond with colleagues, but all I felt was a sense of entrapment. My marriage had settled into a dull routine, each day blending into the next like an unchanging landscape. I turned back to the room, where my suitcase lay half open, clothes spilling out like my scattered thoughts. The corporate world had always been my escape, but now it felt like another cage. My husband, Martin, was good-natured and reliable, but the spark that once ignited our relationship had long since dimmed. I craved excitement, something more than mundane conversations about bills and groceries. As I made my way to the conference hall for our first session of the day, I scanned the crowd for familiar faces. The chatter filled the air, laughter mingled with discussions about quarterly reports and team-building exercises. I forced a smile as I greeted coworkers, but inside, I felt restless. The thought of spending another night in this paradise without any real connection gnawed at me. Then he walked in, David, our CEO. Charismatic and confident, he commanded attention without even trying. His presence stirred something deep within me, a longing for adventure that had been dormant for too long. He caught my eye from across the room and offered a slight nod as he took his place at the front. My heart raced unexpectedly. It wasn't just admiration, it was something more. After his opening speech about innovation and teamwork, David announced an evening gathering by the beach bonfire. As colleagues dispersed to prepare for dinner, I lingered behind, feeling drawn to him like a moth to flame. "Lily," he said when we were finally alone in a quiet corner of the hall. "Can we talk?" My breath caught in my throat as he gestured toward a secluded path leading away from the crowd. There was an undeniable electricity between us that sent shivers down my spine. "Sure," I replied, trying to sound casual despite my racing heart. We walked side by side along a narrow trail lined with palm trees swaying gently in the evening breeze. The sounds of laughter faded behind us as we ventured deeper into solitude. "I've noticed you seem distant lately," David said softly as we reached a clearing overlooking the beach. "Just adjusting to being away from home," I replied too quickly. He studied me intently for a moment before speaking again. "Sometimes it's good to break away from routine." His words resonated with me more than they should have. Here was this powerful man acknowledging my restlessness, a validation of feelings I had buried beneath layers of obligation and expectation. "Do you ever feel trapped?" I asked before thinking better of it. David's gaze sharpened slightly. There was understanding in his eyes that made me feel exposed yet safe at once. "All too often." A silence fell between us, charged and heavy with unspoken possibilities, until he broke it with an invitation that sent my heart racing anew. "How about we continue this conversation privately later?" I hesitated for just a moment before nodding slowly. Anticipation danced within me like flames licking at kindling. As we returned to join our colleagues around the bonfire later that night, laughter erupted from every corner while waves crashed rhythmically against the shore nearby. The atmosphere buzzed with energy and warmth, yet beneath it all lay an undercurrent of tension that only David and I seemed aware of. Throughout dinner and mingling afterward, our glances met across tables filled with chatter and clinking glasses, each stolen moment igniting sparks of longing within me that felt both thrilling and terrifying. But when Martin called later that evening to check in on me, his voice warm yet tinged with concern, I felt guilt wash over me like cold water dousing flames. He deserved better than this distraction brewing inside me, yet here I was on an island meant for relaxation, feeling anything but relaxed. "Everything's fine," I assured him too quickly again as David approached nearby with an easy smile that made everything else fade away momentarily. As night fell deeper over us like velvet draping across shoulders bare from summer heat, my heart raced not only from proximity but also from fear over what tomorrow might bring if things continued down this path. and whether or not I'd have courage enough to follow through on this unexpected journey unfolding before me. The bonfire crackled brightly against darkness surrounding us while laughter echoed across sandy shores, but still lingering in shadows were doubts whispering warnings into my ear about choices yet unmade. With every passing moment spent near David, the man who represented everything exciting yet dangerous, I felt myself teetering on an edge between two worlds, one familiar yet suffocatingly dull, another exhilarating yet fraught with uncertainty ahead. A crossroads where decisions loomed large over both heart and mind alike, waiting patiently for clarity amidst chaos swirling around them both. And just then, the flickering flames illuminating his features perfectly, I knew one thing: whatever happened next would change everything forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the tranquil waters, I strolled along the beach, my thoughts swirling like the waves lapping at my feet. The air was thick with salt and possibility, and each step felt heavier as guilt settled in my chest. I had left behind my mundane life for this corporate retreat, yet here I was, grappling with a decision that could shatter everything. David walked beside me, his presence both comforting and electrifying. The way he looked at me ignited a spark I hadn't felt in years. But alongside that spark was an undeniable weight, the knowledge of my marriage, of my husband waiting for me back home, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within me. I glanced at David, his profile illuminated by the fading light. He seemed lost in thought too, perhaps wrestling with his own demons. "Lily," he broke the silence, his voice soft yet firm. "What are you thinking about?" I hesitated before answering. "Just life." It was vague but true enough to avoid delving deeper into my conflicted feelings. He nodded slowly, as if contemplating my words. "Sometimes it feels like we're stuck in roles we never chose." His gaze drifted to the horizon where the sky met the sea. "I know what it's like to feel trapped." The honesty in his voice tugged at something deep inside me. My heart raced as I considered how similar our situations might be, two people caught in lives that didn't fulfill them. My mind flashed to memories of dinners spent in silence with my husband, days filled with routine and predictability. As we walked further down the shore, I noticed a group of colleagues gathered around a bonfire not far from us. Laughter floated through the air like music, a stark contrast to the heaviness that enveloped me. I tried to shake off the feeling of envy creeping into my heart. They seemed so carefree while I stood on this precipice between desire and duty. Just then, snippets of their conversation reached me. "Did you see how close Lily and David are?" One voice chimed in with a hint of mischief. Another responded with a laugh. "I can't believe she's letting loose like this." Who knew? Jealousy flared within me as I considered how easily they dismissed my struggles. They saw only what they wanted, an exciting affair between an employee and her CEO, but they didn't see the turmoil beneath it all. David must have sensed my shift in mood because he paused and turned towards me. "Are you all right?" His eyes searched mine for answers. "Just overheard something," I replied lightly but couldn't hide the tremor in my voice. He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret meant only for us. "People talk when they see something unusual." His expression softened into understanding. "But what matters is how you feel." His words hung between us like an unspoken promise, a recognition that perhaps we were both seeking something beyond what we currently had. A connection? Freedom? It was also unclear yet intoxicatingly tempting. "I just don't want to hurt anyone," I confessed quietly, staring out at the waves crashing against the shore as if they could wash away my doubts. David took a deep breath before speaking again. "Neither do I." He paused for a moment before continuing with surprising vulnerability. "My marriage isn't what it seems either." My heart raced at his admission. It felt like an invitation to explore our shared struggles more deeply than ever before. Was this why we were drawn together? To find solace in one another's pain? Before I could respond, He stepped even closer until there was barely any space between us, his warmth radiating against my skin as he searched for words that lingered unspoken on his lips. "We kissed," he finally said softly, breaking through the tension that crackled between us. The confession hung heavy in the air as realization washed over me. This moment held weight beyond mere attraction. It represented all our unfulfilled desires laid bare under the twilight sky. But just as quickly as that spark ignited hope within me, guilt surged back, an unwelcome tide crashing against fragile dreams of freedom from reality's chains binding me tight. A sudden chill swept across the beach. Clouds began gathering ominously overhead while thunder rumbled faintly in distance, a warning or perhaps a sign. "Let's head back," David suggested gently but firmly. Concern etched across his features mirrored mine perfectly. As we turned away from temptation's edge and retraced our steps towards safety among colleagues, laughter echoing behind us like ghosts haunting every move forward, I couldn't shake off feeling torn between two worlds once more. One filled with familiar comfort but dull monotony, another promising adventure yet fraught with uncertainty lurking just beneath its surface. The night grew darker around us as we approached our group again, laughter mingling with shadows dancing around flickering flames, but inside me churned emotions too complex for mere words alone could express anymore. And then came whispers carried by wind, the kind that seemed destined to unravel everything. "Did you hear about Lily?" someone said loudly enough for all ears present, including mine, to catch wind of their gossiping tongues once more turning toward me without hesitation or care for truth behind rumors spun wildly around campfires tonight. Suddenly feeling exposed under scrutiny's gaze made every heartbeat echo louder than before, a reminder of choices made leading down paths fraught with consequences trailing behind like shadows refusing to let go. In those moments, standing amid flickering flames illuminating faces eager for drama unfolding, I caught sight of David's eyes meeting mine across distance separating us now. What would happen next? Would courage prevail against fear? Would love conquer all doubts lingering still? The storm rolled closer while uncertainty loomed large overhead, a tempest brewing not just outside but deep within, hearts battling against storms raging silently inside each soul present here tonight. And somewhere amidst all chaos brewing around us, I knew one thing: whatever lay ahead would shape destinies forever changed. The wind howled as the first drops of rain began to fall, a prelude to the storm that would soon engulf the island. I stood on the balcony of my room, watching as dark clouds rolled in, casting shadows over the beach where just hours ago I had walked hand in hand with my CEO. The air was thick with tension and unspoken words, mirroring the tumult within me. "Lily," he had said softly, his voice barely rising above the sound of crashing waves. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to break free from everything?" His gaze held mine, a mixture of longing and vulnerability that made my heart race. I had never seen this side of him before, this man who commanded boardrooms and made decisions that shaped our company. Here, on this remote island, he was just a man seeking solace from his own burdens. The storm threatened to interrupt our moment, but it also felt like a catalyst for change. "We can't let this moment slip away," I whispered, feeling a rush of courage surge through me. The weight of my marriage felt lighter in his presence, as if he could somehow lift the veil of monotony that had shrouded my life for far too long. As we retreated indoors to escape the rain, lightning illuminated the room for just an instant. In that fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of his expression, determined yet hesitant. We settled on the couch, silence stretching between us like an uncharted territory waiting to be explored. My heart raced as I considered what lay ahead, every thought was punctuated by thunder rumbling in the distance. "Lily," he said again, breaking the silence that enveloped us. "I don't want to regret not taking this chance." His voice was steady but edged with urgency. I nodded slowly, grappling with my own fears and desires. Then it happened, our lips met. It was tentative at first, as if testing the waters of this new reality we were stepping into together. The kiss ignited something deep within me, a spark I hadn't felt in years, and suddenly all doubts seemed insignificant against this raw connection we shared. The storm outside intensified as we pulled away from each other, breathless and wide-eyed. "What are we doing?" I murmured, grappling with both excitement and fear. He took a deep breath and leaned closer. "We're embracing what's real." His honesty struck me. It was refreshing amidst all my uncertainties. But just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, the sound of furniture being tossed around by fierce winds, and it jolted me back to reality. My thoughts drifted to Tom, my husband. Would he notice my absence? Would he even care? The guilt washed over me like cold water, dousing the flames of passion ignited moments before. "Lily?" His voice broke through my reverie again, concern etched across his features. "Are you okay?" I forced myself to nod, even though doubt lurked beneath the surface like an impending tide ready to pull me under. "I'm fine," I replied softly, but knew that wasn't entirely true. As thunder rumbled overhead once more, I realized how vulnerable we both were in this intimate space, two people caught between their desires and responsibilities while nature mirrored our emotional chaos outside. "Let's not think about anything else right now," he suggested gently as he reached for my hand again, a simple gesture yet so profound in its meaning. The storm raged on outside while inside our sanctuary there was an undeniable warmth, a contrast so stark that it left me feeling dizzy with possibilities even amidst chaos brewing around us. But even as we shared stories and laughter amid fleeting moments punctuated by raindrops tapping against glass windows like whispers urging us onward, I couldn't shake off lingering doubts about what lay ahead after tonight ended. Suddenly lightning flashed again, illuminating his face. Determination mingled with uncertainty danced across his features, an embodiment of everything we both faced at this crossroads in our lives. "I know this is risky," he said quietly after another beat passed between us where words hung heavy in the air filled only by sounds from outside. Crashing waves echoing against rocky shores below us resonated deeply within me too, reminding me how fragile everything truly is. "I don't want to hurt anyone," I confessed, finally breaking through layers built up over years spent trying so hard, not wanting things any more than they already were, but here they were. Raw emotions laid bare before us, two souls yearning for something more than what life had dealt them until now. "We won't hurt anyone if we're honest with ourselves," he replied firmly yet tenderly, a reminder that truth often comes at a cost, but sometimes it's worth taking risks despite uncertainties looming large ahead. Just then another crash sounded outside, followed by howling winds rattling shutters threatening to break free from their hinges, the outside world pressing closer against our fragile bubble where nothing else mattered except these moments shared together. In those precious seconds stolen away from reality, amidst storms raging both inside and out, I found solace within him. Perhaps even hope flickered faintly somewhere deep down inside, where dreams lay buried beneath layers upon layers built up over time spent living someone else's version instead of mine. But just as quickly as clarity came rushing forth, it vanished too, leaving behind only questions lingering unanswered. A sudden gust rattled through open doors leading out toward darkened skies beyond, reminding me how quickly everything could change. One moment could alter destinies forever. Even if those moments felt fleeting now, they carried weight far heavier than any storm raging beyond these walls surrounding us. And so there we sat, two souls intertwined amidst chaos swirling around us, unsure whether tomorrow would bring light or darkness, but knowing one thing for sure: whatever lay ahead would shape destinies forever changed. As dawn broke over the horizon, the golden rays spilled through the large windows of the resort suite, casting warm light across the room. I stirred, feeling a weight beside me, a presence that was both comforting and alarming. The CEO lay there, his face relaxed in sleep, completely at ease. My heart raced as I recalled how we spent the night together, wrapped in each other's arms, sharing secrets and dreams that felt forbidden yet exhilarating. I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to disturb him. The ocean waves crashed rhythmically against the shore outside, a soothing sound that reminded me of how far I had drifted from my mundane life back home. I moved to the balcony and took a deep breath of salty air. The view was stunning, an endless stretch of blue water meeting the sky, but my thoughts were clouded by guilt and fear. What would happen when we returned to reality? The thrill of our connection was intoxicating, but it came with a heavy price. Would this moment be worth sacrificing my marriage? My husband had always been kind, even if our relationship had grown stale over time. As I leaned against the railing, contemplating my choices, a sudden noise pulled me from my reverie. The door creaked open behind me, and I turned to see him standing there, his hair tousled and eyes still sleepy but bright with curiosity. "Morning," he said softly, a smile breaking across his face. "Good morning," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't want to wake you." He stepped closer, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "I didn't want to miss a moment with you." His breath was warm against my neck. In that instant, everything felt perfect. However, reality loomed just beneath the surface like an unseen tide ready to pull me under. We shared a few moments in silence before he broke it with a question that sent chills down my spine. "What happens now?" "I don't know," I admitted quietly. "This feels complicated." He released me reluctantly and took a step back. "You have your life back home, I have mine." His expression shifted slightly as he continued. "But does that mean we shouldn't explore what's happening between us?" Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door that shattered our intimate moment. My heart raced again, not just from surprise but from fear of being discovered. He glanced at me with concern before moving toward the door. "Who is it?" I whispered urgently. "Just a colleague," he replied nonchalantly as he opened it slightly. To my horror, it was Sarah, the office gossip who always seemed to have her nose in everyone's business. She stood there with her eyes wide open in disbelief as she took in the scene before her, two colleagues clearly having spent the night together. Sorry," she stammered awkwardly before turning on her heel and rushing away down the hallway. Panic surged through me as I exchanged glances with him. We both understood what this could mean for us. Rumors swirling through our workplace like wildfire could ruin everything we had begun to build here on this island retreat. "We need to be careful," I said urgently as he closed the door behind Sarah's hasty exit. "I know," he replied thoughtfully. "But how do we navigate this?" Before we could delve deeper into our conversation about boundaries and consequences, my phone buzzed on the bedside table, a stark reminder of reality crashing back down on us like waves against rocks. I picked it up hesitantly and saw my husband's name flashing across the screen. My stomach dropped. He never called unless something urgent was happening or if he sensed something was off. "Lily?" His voice came through strained and anxious when I answered it after several seconds of hesitation. "Yes?" "I'm trying to reach you," he said tightly. "Where are you?" "You've been gone too long." "I'm at breakfast," I lied quickly while glancing at my CEO who stood silently listening nearby. "Breakfast? It's nearly noon. Are you sure you're not just covering for something else?" His tone shifted slightly into accusation without outright saying it, like a tightrope walker balancing between trust and suspicion. "I'm fine. Just lost track of time." "Is everything okay?" "You sound different." "I'm just tired," I managed weakly while feeling heat rise in my cheeks. Guilt gnawed at me like an insatiable creature within. "Okay," he hesitated before continuing cautiously. "I saw some photos from our neighbor's backyard last night, of you walking away from our house with someone." My heart sank further. How could she betray me like that? Was there no sanctuary left for secrets? "What do you mean?" "There were pictures taken while you were at dinner, people talking about your absence." He paused again, his voice turned cold as ice settled into every word spoken next. "Lily, are you cheating on me?" The air thickened around us as panic gripped me tight, every instinct screamed for self-preservation while simultaneously wanting honesty. a collision of desires that threatened to tear apart everything I'd built over years within this marriage. No. Of course not. The words escaped before fully forming in thought, a reflexive denial fueled by fear rather than truthfulness, but inside confusion swirled like storm clouds gathering overhead, threatening rain without warning. His silence hung heavily between us until finally breaking through. Then why are you so defensive? I swallowed hard as dread settled deep within. It felt impossible to navigate these waters without sinking entirely beneath their surface. Yet here stood two men, one representing safety while another promised adventure, and both held pieces of my heart captive in their grasp. Look, my voice faltered under pressure as uncertainty loomed large ahead. I needed time but feared losing both sides altogether if caught between them too long. Before I could gather myself enough for another response or even contemplate what might come next, a realization struck hard. This was no longer merely about desire or escape. It transcended beyond mere attraction into realms unknown where love tangled intricately alongside betrayal, and all too soon consequences would arise demanding reckoning, all while standing precariously upon shifting sands beneath feet unsure where they belonged anymore. The call ended abruptly, leaving lingering questions unanswered echoing painfully within. I glanced toward him seeking solace, only finding uncertainty mirrored back instead, a reflection revealing shadows looming larger than either one dared confront alone. The morning sun peeked through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. I lay there, tangled in sheets that felt foreign yet comforting, a stark reminder of the night before. Memories of whispered secrets and shared laughter danced in my mind. But as the reality of the retreat's end loomed closer, so did the weight of my choices. Lily, his voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. The CEO sat at the edge of the bed, his brow furrowed with concern. What are we going to do when we leave this place? The question hung in the air like a fragile thread, ready to snap at any moment. I had been avoiding this conversation since our connection deepened. My heart raced as I considered my answer, but uncertainty gnawed at me. I don't know, I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, an action that made him look both vulnerable and handsome. I can't pretend this doesn't matter to me, he confessed, his gaze steady on mine. But what about your life back home? Your husband? I flinched at the mention of him. The thought of returning to my mundane existence filled me with dread. Yet guilt clawed at me too. I had commitments, promises made long before this retreat transformed everything. I love him, I said automatically, but even as I spoke those words, doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. Do you? He challenged gently. Or do you love who you used to be? The woman who dreamed of adventure? His words struck a chord deep within me. The longing for freedom had been buried beneath layers of routine and expectation for years now. I glanced out at the ocean waves crashing against the shore, a reminder that life was fluid and ever-changing. I don't want to hurt anyone, I replied finally, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Neither do I, he said softly. But sometimes we have to choose for ourselves. His sincerity stirred something within me, a flicker of hope amidst confusion. Yet as we sat in silence, contemplating our next steps, anxiety crept back in like an unwelcome shadow. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the nightstand, its shrill sound cutting through our intimate moment like a knife. It was a message from my husband, *, where are you? You're late coming home, *. My heart sank as panic washed over me. He was already suspicious after our last conversation when he questioned where I'd been during our retreat's activities. I need to respond, I said quickly, fumbling for my phone. Wait, he urged gently. Let's talk about this first. No. My voice came out sharper than intended as fear gripped me tightly. I couldn't let him see how torn I truly was between two lives. I typed a quick reply. Traffic is terrible. It felt hollow and insincere even as I sent it off into the digital void. Lily, his tone was cautious now, he could sense my turmoil growing heavier by the second. I can't keep doing this, I admitted finally, feeling raw and exposed under his gaze. I have responsibilities. The disappointment flickered across his face before it hardened into determination. He wouldn't let go easily either. I understand, he said slowly, almost reluctantly. But think about what you want for yourself. For myself? That question echoed in my mind louder than any wave crashing against rocks outside our window. Just then there was a knock on the door, two firm raps that jolted us both from our thoughts. My heart raced again. Who could it be? Lily? A familiar voice called out. It was one of our colleagues from marketing who had been part of our group during team-building activities earlier in the week. We're gathering for breakfast, she announced cheerfully through the door. Panic surged within me again. Breakfast meant facing everyone else. The facade we had all built around this corporate retreat would soon crumble if they saw us together like this. I should go, I murmured hastily while pulling myself up from bed and hastily smoothing down my clothes that somehow felt more disheveled than ever before. He nodded silently but didn't move from where he sat, a statue caught between two worlds just as much as I was becoming one myself. As soon as I stepped out into the hallway filled with bright light and laughter echoing off walls adorned with tropical art pieces depicting paradise scenes, my heart raced anew with every step taken away from him toward safety, or so it seemed. Breakfast unfolded around us amid chatter about projects and deadlines, a routine far removed from what had transpired just hours earlier behind closed doors between two souls yearning for something more than their respective lives allowed them to embrace fully together. And yet amidst all those conversations swirling around me, I felt lost within them all. Each bite tasted bland compared to sweetness shared moments before, each laugh ringing hollow against memories still fresh in mind. Then came another interruption. The neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, a woman notorious for her keen eye and penchant for gossip, strode into view with her usual flair, dressed impeccably despite being early morning hours still lingering overhead. "Lily! How lovely to see you," she exclaimed brightly while casting glances around searchingly. It didn't take long before her gaze landed firmly upon me again. "Did you enjoy your time here?" she continued innocently enough, but there was an edge beneath her words that set off alarms inside me instantly. The way she looked past me toward where he stood lingering near refreshments table only fueled those fears further. "Yes. Very much." My response came out too quickly, too strained even. I could feel heat creeping up my cheeks, betraying every attempt made toward maintaining composure under scrutiny. "Oh good. We missed you at dinner last night." Her smile widened knowingly, one that sent chills racing down spine because it hinted at knowledge beyond mere casual observation. My stomach twisted uncomfortably. She must have seen us together after all, perhaps caught sight during one fleeting moment when we thought ourselves hidden away from prying eyes. As she continued chatting animatedly about trivial matters, I struggled internally against rising tide threatening to drown any semblance left intact regarding decisions made thus far regarding future paths ahead. In that moment everything crystallized into stark clarity. Choices lay ahead waiting patiently while shadows loomed larger than life itself, threatening repercussions unseen yet unavoidable if truth emerged fully exposed into daylight once more. And so stood there caught between two worlds, the one beckoning freedom yet fraught with peril alongside another anchored firmly by duty demanding unwavering loyalty no matter consequences faced ahead. Torn between whispers echoing through heart yearning desperately for liberation versus responsibilities weighing heavily upon shoulders bearing burdens too great alone without support found elsewhere outside confines known intimately well enough already. The moment I stepped back into my home, the familiar scent of my husband's cologne mingled with the faint aroma of the dinner he had prepared. It was a stark contrast to the salty breeze and exotic flowers of the island retreat. My heart raced, not from excitement but from an overwhelming sense of dislocation. I was home, yet I felt like a stranger in my own life. The evening light filtered through the window, casting long shadows across the living room. My husband, Mark, sat at the dining table, his brow furrowed as he scrolled through his phone. He glanced up as I entered, and I could see the flicker of concern in his eyes. "How was the retreat?" he asked, his voice steady but edged with something unspoken. "Fine," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Just a lot of meetings and team-building exercises." The words felt hollow as they left my lips. The truth was buried deep within me, a truth that felt both liberating and terrifying. Mark didn't press further but continued to observe me with an intensity that made me uneasy. As we sat down for dinner, I could sense his scrutiny on every bite I took. I tried to engage him in conversation about his day, but his responses were curt and distracted. After dinner, while clearing the table, he picked up a photograph that had been left out, one taken during our last family gathering. It depicted laughter and warmth, moments shared with friends and family that seemed so distant now. He studied it for a moment before placing it back down with a sigh. "Are you okay?" he asked suddenly, his tone shifting to something softer. "You seem different." "I'm just tired," I said quickly, avoiding his gaze. The truth was far more complicated than simple fatigue. It was a whirlwind of emotions battling within me. That night, sleep eluded me as memories of my time on the island flooded my mind, the CEO's laughter echoing in my ears, our shared secrets weaving an intricate tapestry of desire and fear. The weight of our connection pressed heavily on my chest as I tossed and turned under the sheets. Just as dawn broke through the curtains, a soft knock at the door startled me awake. It was Mark again, looking more concerned than ever. "Lily? Can we talk?" I sat up slowly, wrapping myself in a blanket to shield against both the chill of morning and the vulnerability creeping into my heart. "Sure," I murmured. He entered cautiously and sat at the edge of our bed. "I've been thinking about us." His voice trembled slightly as if he were treading on fragile ground. "What do you mean?" My stomach twisted at the uncertainty in his expression. "I don't want to lose you," he admitted quietly. "I feel like there's something you're not telling me." A lump formed in my throat as guilt washed over me like a cold wave crashing onto shore. How could I explain what had transpired? How could I articulate this newfound yearning for freedom without shattering what little stability remained? "I'm just overwhelmed," I finally said after what felt like an eternity of silence. He reached out to touch my hand gently, a gesture meant to reassure but only deepened my internal conflict. In that moment, everything hung in balance, my marriage tethered by loyalty versus an exhilarating connection that promised something more profound yet perilous. As we spoke about mundane things, work stressors and upcoming family events, I couldn't shake off that feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Perhaps it was just paranoia stemming from guilt, or maybe something more tangible lurking outside our carefully constructed lives. Later that day, while running errands around town, a distraction from relentless thoughts, I bumped into Janet from next door at the cafe where we often exchanged pleasantries over coffee or baked goods. "Hey there. You look different," she remarked cheerfully while stirring her drink absent-mindedly. "Everything okay?" "Just busy," I replied tersely before taking a sip from my own cup. Bitterness lingered longer than anticipated, much like this conversation threatening to unravel everything hidden beneath layers built over years together with Mark. Janet leaned closer conspiratorially, her voice dropped low enough for only us to hear. "You know there are whispers going around about you too?" My heart sank at her words. Whispers? What did she mean? The thought made me uneasy, as if someone had taken pieces of our lives without permission and pieced them together into a narrative entirely outside our control. "Whispers?" I echoed weakly. "Nothing serious," she waved off dismissively but added quickly before leaving. "Just some photos going around, you know how people are." "Photos?" My mind raced back to those stolen moments on the island, the laughter shared under palm trees swaying gently against ocean breezes, a world away from this reality now closing around me like walls closing in tighter each passing second. As she walked away with her coffee cup held tightly against her chest, a sense of dread settled deep within me. Anxiety coiled around each thought like vines choking out light, desperately seeking escape routes through tangled paths leading nowhere good. Returning home later that evening after work felt heavier than usual. Shadows danced along walls illuminated only by dim lights flickering overhead, casting ominous shapes reminiscent of fears lurking just beyond sight, waiting patiently for their chance. Mark greeted me at the door again, this time holding 2 glasses filled with wine, offering them up cheerfully despite tension lingering palpable between us, still unaddressed, hanging thickly in air surrounding every word spoken. But before either one could speak further, the doorbell rang, unexpectedly interrupting whatever fragile moment we'd been building back towards normalcy. As Mark opened it wide, my heart plummeted, seeing who stood there, Janet again, this time looking serious, holding out her phone towards him wordlessly while glancing sideways towards me hesitantly. A picture flashed across screen revealing moments captured long ago during retreat, me laughing freely beside our CEO, lost amidst all else fading into background noise. Mark's face drained color instantly. Confusion morphed into disbelief, then anger clouded over features, tightening jaw, clenched fists shaking, slightly unable to process what lay before him. Lily, he breathed out slowly, almost painfully aware now how precarious everything truly stood, teetering on edge, ready to collapse under weight, truths hidden too long, kept buried beneath surface, still unseen until now. And just like that, the delicate balance shattered, leaving nothing but chaos swirling around us both, threatening consume everything whole. The weight of uncertainty hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I sat at my kitchen table, the morning sun filtering through the window, illuminating the cluttered remnants of breakfast that had long since gone cold. My phone buzzed again, another message from my husband. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, heart racing with a mix of dread and anticipation. Lily, we need to talk. Can you come home early today? The words struck me like a punch to the gut. His tone felt urgent, almost desperate. Memories of our last encounter flooded back, his furrowed brow, the tension in his voice as he confronted me about my whereabouts during the retreat. I had brushed off his concerns then, convinced that I could navigate this storm without capsizing my life entirely. But now? The prospect of facing him filled me with anxiety. I glanced at my reflection in the window, searching for signs of who I was becoming. Was I still that dutiful wife? Or had I transformed into someone unrecognizable, tangled in a web of choices that threatened to ensnare me? The thought of the CEO sent a shiver down my spine. Our connection had been electric, a spark igniting something deep within me that had lain dormant for years. Yet his recent revelation about his own struggles made me question everything we'd built together over those stolen moments on the island. What did it mean if he was just as trapped as I was? Was our affair merely an escape for both of us, or was it something more profound? The uncertainty gnawed at me. I stood up abruptly and paced around the kitchen, trying to shake off the feeling of impending doom. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, every tick of the clock echoed loudly in my ears. I needed clarity before facing my husband, before confronting what lay ahead. With a sudden resolve, I reached for my phone and opened a message thread with the CEO. My fingers hovered above the keyboard as I considered what to say. Would he understand? Could he offer me some insight into this mess? Can we talk? It was simple but loaded with implications. The reply came swiftly, yes. Where? I paused for a moment before typing out an address to a quaint cafe nearby, a neutral ground where we could meet without drawing too much attention from prying eyes. As soon as I pressed send, doubt crept back in. What if this meeting only complicated things further? Yet deep down, beneath layers of guilt and fear, there was an undeniable urge to seek answers, to understand what this whirlwind meant for both of us. Hours passed slowly until finally, it was time to leave for the cafe. The drive felt surreal. Every familiar street seemed foreign now, as if they were mocking my internal turmoil. Arriving at the cafe, I spotted him sitting at a corner table, his posture relaxed but his eyes scanning anxiously around us. When he saw me approach, his face lit up momentarily before settling into an expression tinged with concern. "Lily," he greeted softly as I took a seat across from him. "Thanks for meeting me," I replied, trying to sound composed despite feeling anything but calm inside. He leaned forward slightly, studying my face as if searching for answers hidden there. "What's going on? You seem different." I don't know how else to say this, I began hesitantly, but everything feels so complicated right now. His gaze didn't waver, instead, it intensified as he listened intently. "I've been thinking about us, about what happened on that island," I continued carefully, weighing each word like precious stones balanced on a fragile scale. His expression shifted slightly, a flicker of hope mingled with trepidation crossed his features before he spoke again. "Me too." The silence stretched between us like an unspoken agreement hanging heavy in the air. "I can't help but wonder if we're just two people running away from our problems," I admitted finally. "What if this is all just temporary?" He nodded slowly as though absorbing each word before responding thoughtfully. "I've been afraid you'd feel that way." My heart sank slightly at his admission. It was confirmation that neither of us could escape our realities simply by seeking solace in one another's arms. Just then, my phone buzzed again, a notification lighting up the screen with an incoming call from home. My stomach twisted painfully at its implications. It could only mean one thing: more questions awaited me upon returning home. "I have to take this," I said apologetically and stepped outside onto the cafe's patio where fresh air greeted me like an old friend. "Lily?" My husband's voice crackled through the line immediately upon answering, tense and laced with urgency once more. "Hi, what's wrong?" "I saw something today," he began hesitantly before continuing more forcefully, "something that makes everything clear." My breath caught in my throat as dread pooled heavily within me. Images flashed through my mind, the neighbor's gossiping face hovering ominously over memories shared between myself and him, the CEO whose presence had ignited something within but also threatened everything familiar around me. "What do you mean?" "There are photos," his voice trailed off momentarily before resuming with newfound determination. "I need you home now." Panic surged through me like wildfire consuming dry brush. Every instinct screamed at me to run back inside, to confront whatever truth lay ahead, but part of me remained rooted outside beneath bright skies tainted by shadows creeping closer than ever before. With trembling hands gripping tightly onto my phone while glancing back toward where he waited inside, the man who stirred feelings long thought buried, I stood paralyzed between two worlds colliding violently against one another, threatening everything sacred built upon foundations now cracking under pressure. In that moment, suspended between choices left unmade, I faced an undeniable truth: freedom would not come easily nor without consequence, but did either path lead toward liberation or simply deeper entrapment? As clarity slipped further away into obscurity, I knew one thing for certain: whatever happened next would change everything forever. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the familiar streets of Charleston. I drove home slowly, each turn of the wheel a reminder of the weight pressing down on my chest. The retreat had felt like a dream, a brief escape from the mundane reality of my life. But now, as I returned to my everyday existence, the thrill faded into a dull ache. With every passing moment, the tension in my marriage loomed larger. My husband's suspicions were palpable, and I could sense his watchful gaze even when he wasn't near. The neighbor's gossip still echoed in my mind, a fleeting glance at a photograph that had sent shivers down my spine. I wondered how much he truly knew and whether he had pieced together the fragments of my secret life. Pulling into my driveway, I hesitated before stepping out of the car. The house looked unchanged, yet everything felt different to me. Inside, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, his brow furrowed in concentration over paperwork scattered before him. The sight stirred an uncomfortable mix of guilt and apprehension within me. "Lily," he greeted without looking up. His voice was steady but carried an edge that hinted at unspoken accusations. "Hey," I replied, forcing a smile as I moved to pour myself a glass of water. The cool liquid felt refreshing yet inadequate against the heat rising in my chest. "I spoke with Marlene today," he continued, finally lifting his gaze to meet mine. "She mentioned seeing you at the retreat." I froze mid-sip, water nearly spilling from the glass. "Oh? What did she say?" "Just that you seemed close to your boss." He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed tightly over his chest. "What does that mean?" The question hung heavy in the air between us. My heart raced as memories flooded back, the thrill of stolen moments with my CEO, our laughter mingling with ocean waves under moonlight. Yet here I was, confronted by the reality of my choices. "It means we were working together," I replied cautiously, choosing my words carefully as if they might shield me from further scrutiny. "Working together?" He scoffed lightly but didn't break eye contact. "I've seen how you look at him." A silence settled over us like a thick fog. I could almost hear his thoughts racing ahead to conclusions he hadn't voiced yet. "I'm not having an affair," I insisted, though doubt crept into my voice as soon as the words left my lips. Was it truly just work? Or had those moments on the island blurred lines that should have remained clear? He studied me for what felt like an eternity before shaking his head slowly. "You don't have to lie to me." There was hurt behind his words, a vulnerability that tugged at something deep within me. "I'm not lying," I said more firmly this time. "I just needed some space." "Space?" He echoed incredulously. "You needed space while you were away with him?" The accusation stung more than it should have. It was tinged with betrayal and hurt that mirrored what churned inside me too. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang sharply through our tense exchange, a jarring interruption that somehow broke our fragile moment. My husband's eyes narrowed instinctively toward the door before he pushed himself up from his chair and moved toward it with purpose. When he opened it, there stood Marlene, her expression unreadable but her presence undeniably charged with urgency. "Hey. Sorry for dropping by unannounced," she greeted cheerfully before her gaze shifted between us, assessing something unspoken in our body language. "Marlene," I said cautiously as she stepped inside without invitation. Her energy filled the room like an unwelcome draft. "I thought we could talk about some ideas for next quarter's project." Her eyes flickered toward my husband briefly before returning to me with an intensity that made me uneasy. "Sure," I replied hesitantly while exchanging glances with him. His confusion mingling with frustration was palpable now. As we settled into chairs around our small dining table, Marlene animatedly discussing marketing strategies, I couldn't shake off a sense of foreboding creeping back in like shadows stretching across dusk-lit streets outside. Every laugh shared felt strained, every idea exchanged weighed heavier than usual under scrutiny from both sides, my husband's silent judgment and Marlene's probing curiosity making it hard to breathe freely amidst all this tension. Finally breaking through her presentation about demographics and projections came another knock on our door, a sound so unexpected yet familiar enough to send chills down my spine again. This time it was too late for evasions or half-truths. The truth would come crashing down regardless of whether or not we were ready for it. My husband stood again, this time more resolute than ever, as he opened it wide enough for another figure to step inside, Tom, the CEO himself, looking far too confident for someone who had no idea what awaited him behind those walls filled now with secrets and lies intertwined like vines choking out sunlight from above them all. "Lily." His voice rang out like music after silence. There was warmth there, but also something else lurking beneath, a danger or perhaps recklessness that sent adrenaline coursing through me once more despite everything else unraveling around us now too quickly for comfort. "What are you doing here?" my husband demanded before Tom could even fully take stock of what lay ahead, and suddenly everything shifted dramatically into focus. The stakes raised higher than ever before as tension crackled between us all like electricity waiting for its chance to ignite something far beyond mere words spoken carelessly amidst fear and desire colliding head-on. In that moment suspended between choices left unmade, I faced an undeniable truth. Freedom would not come easily nor without consequence, but did either path lead toward liberation or simply deeper entrapment? As clarity slipped further away into obscurity, I knew one thing for certain: whatever happened next would change everything forever.